High temperatures this weekend in the low to mid 80s with at least a chance of a shower.
Each late spring and early summer of the year, Kansans look apprehensively toward the sky.
Meteorologist Brittany Foster, she's going to have another look at those storm chances. That is coming up. Udall, Heston, Andover, Greensburg. Kansas has an unfortunate history when it comes to devastating and deadly tornadoes. But it also has an untold history when it comes to the origin of a life-saving tornado technology, a tool that got its start right here in the heartland. Just a year after the end of World War II, the U.S. Weather Bureau wanted to try out a new wartime technology, radar. Airborne radars intended for hunting U-boats and navigating warplanes were headed to the Great Plains and beyond. What the military knew as the APS-2 was modified for ground use, renamed Weather Surveillance Radar 1. And number 1 was installed in Wichita in 1947, making Wichita the first weather bureau to have its own weather radar. The early days of weather radar were primitive, black and white, and messy. It wasn't until the early 1950s that meteorologists saw their first hook echo and made the connection between it and a confirmed tornado. Some radars had built-in cameras to capture images, while others relied on the steady hand of the operator to trace the cells. Just as they did at Tinker Air Force Base the night of May 25, 1955. As forecasters tracked the storm that would ravage the town of Udall, Kansas, and kill nearly 90.
Families were separated, friends lost. There was no source for human facts, no way to know where people were or how they had fared, only a tormenting void for the survivors.
Despite being primitive, this new technology was working, but these radars were just seeing storms. Let me show you. A pulse of energy is sent from the radar. When it hits a thunderstorm, part of that energy is reflected back to the radar, hence the term echo. It's then plotted like you see here. But meteorologists wanted to know more. They wanted to know what was happening inside of the storm. And for that, they needed a different type of radar. They needed Doppler. In the simplest of terms, Doppler radar can detect the wind speed and direction of objects in a storm. They believed if they could detect the wind speeds, they could also detect a tornado. So they acquired more Navy surplus, and an experimental program was formed. They placed the radar on top of a trailer. They parked one of these units in Wichita Falls, Texas, and the other in Wichita, Kansas. For over a year, they scanned the Kansas sky without success. It wasn't until June of 1958 when the pattern was perfect. A surface front was draped across the state of Kansas. Warm, moist conditions with cooler air aloft. The atmosphere was unstable and primed for severe weather. 3:40 p.m. Meteorologists at the Weather Bureau office in Wichita observe a towering cumulus cloud 34 miles northwest of Wichita. 4:30. The Weather Bureau issues severe thunderstorm forecast number 127. Isolated hail and high wind gusts for south central Kansas. 4:40. The storm is moving east at a rate of 20 miles per hour. 4:50. The radar operator in Wichita notices a hook echo on the scope. 5 o'clock. Highway Patrolman Robert Lemon reports for duty. He notes that the sky, quote, looked very ugly with thunder and lightning in the distance, heavy clouds, rather still surface conditions, and very hot. 5:20. 3-inch hail in Whitewater. The storm was starting to turn to the southeast. At an azimuth of 30 degrees, the operators aimed the double-dish Doppler radar at the hook-producing storm. 5:29. Observers on the ground report a long white funnel that ultimately makes contact with the ground. The data, recorded on magnetic tape, and plotted on a spectrum revealed wind gusts of over 200 miles per hour. They got their first tornado. For the first time ever, a tornadic storm was hit with Doppler radar. "5:55. A survivor reported the tornado pumped down from the cloud on the outskirts of El Dorado. He saw the tornado pump down to the ground while the cloud was over the Midian substation. He reported each successive pumping action lowered the funnel until it contacted the ground. When he saw it touch the ground, he and his family went to the basement of their home that was destroyed 2 minutes later."
El Dorado, Kansas received the brunt of a tornado just this year of 1958. About 14 were killed and some 100 were injured, many of them seriously so.
Did you have a pretty good forewarning, or did you see it coming, or just what happened?
We saw it coming.
Any estimate of the time that you might have been off the ground?
No, just a minute and it was over, that was all.
When did you first hear about the tornado, that it was coming?
Well, we were the ones who seen it.
You were the first ones to see it? Doctor, how long have you been working here at the hospital this evening?
Well, I was here when it broke, about 6 o'clock. But we've sent a number of the fractures to Wichita because, you know, we got no power.
No sirens, no weather radios, no special reports on TV. Doppler came at a cost. The highly visible tornado quickly carved a path of destruction through El Dorado, Kansas. The tornado likely producing wind speeds of over 200 miles per hour. 13 people killed. Over 80 would be injured. Around 200 homes destroyed. While it occurred before the Wichita scale, by today's standard, it would likely be rated an EF5.
Have you seen tornadoes at work before?
I've never saw one or been close to one. It's the first funnel I even saw before.
Now, I understand you saw it out in the northwest and therefore didn't think that it would come this way.
That's right.
This tornado evidently was taking a path somewhat foreign to what they usually do.
Doppler radar couldn't save the people of El Dorado that night. The data, it wouldn't be analyzed until after the storm had passed. And the findings, well, they wouldn't be published until the early 1960s. In fact, it would be decades until it was refined into the technology that it is today, a tool we use on TV and chances are you have in your pocket. Doppler weather radar, the most powerful tornado detection tool, got its start at this very spot as a deadly tornado roared into El Dorado June 10th of 1958.
During 1958, the K Television News Department shot over 124,000 feet of film, which included more than 1,100 stories. The film that you've seen today is but symbolic of the many, many stories we've covered throughout the year in trying to bring a public service to the community of Wichita and the surrounding territory.